part of our job is to like, hey, how do we bring together this thing into one unified voice and make sure we're all telling the same story and speaking in the same tone and saying the same thing? Because, that's how you lose a lot of trust is by, if every time I talk to you, it sounds like I'm talking to somebody different. And like, it's clear that you guys aren't communicating amongst yourselves, like something feels fishy and I don't know what it is, but, I'm not interested.
Welcome to the TrustBuilt Podcast. I am your host, Alan Bennett, and today we've got a unique guest to the show, Marc Ensign, and Marc has a company called LoudMouse. Welcome to the show, Marc. Welcome to the show, Mal. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Well, okay, so since I made the verbal flub there, LoudMouse is a very unique name. Tell us a little bit about what the business is that you are in and how you came up with the name LoudMouse.
Sure. Well, so we're a fractional CMO agency. So we're in the marketing space, and I've been in marketing for 25 some odd years, and in fact, all my life, like, it's just a typical thing. Like even, before I was doing this, I was a professional musician, and that was 90% marketing and, 10% talent really. I've always had this belief that, everybody deserves to have their voice heard. And so when I was coming up with the name, I was looking for a way to kind of capture, first of all, like with that musician background, something with amplify, something with sound, something with, or in and around that. And this idea of being able to be heard no matter how big or small, really kind of captivated me. And then so I was dancing around a lot of different names like that. My wife and I went away for a long weekend, and she, after about a month of trying to figure out the right name, because I'm like a real stickler for coming up with good names and stuff. Like I can't settle. And she gave me an ultimatum, basically, that either if I didn't come up with a name by the end of the weekend, she was going to pick one for me because she was just tired of hearing about it. And so she drove. I grabbed a yellow pad and we wrote down hundreds of names until we landed on LoudMouse. And then. The really interesting thing about LoudMouse, which is really kind of a cool part of the story, is the domain was actually taken, and so I reached out to the guy that owned it, and I told him, I was like, hey, I got this great idea, and here's what I'm looking to build, and so he had called me up a couple days later, and he's like, well, like I've been given offers of upwards of $10,000 for this domain. And I wasn't ready to spend $10,000 on a domain name at that point. And so I was just about to, kind of say no thanks, and hang up. And he's like, and I started reading about some of the stuff that you were doing. And I had written this blog post about my neighbor and what a good soul he was and all this other kind of stuff. And he's like, I want to return the favor. I want to do good for you. Just like you talked about on your blog. And he gave me the domain name for free. He signed it over on the spot, and which was amazing. And then he called an hour later, and I was just like, "Oh no!" He he must have read something else that he didn't like, and so buyer's remorse or something. And so I told him, I was like, I decided that I was like, if he asked for it back, I'll give it back. Like it's only been an hour, and so I answered the phone. He goes, "I also have the .net. Why don't I transfer that to you as well?" And he also gave me the .net. So. Yeah, so it's the cool thing about this company and this name, and I just have this constant belief around it that here's a guy that was willing to bet $10,000 on me when I wasn't willing to bet $10,000 on me, and so I've always kind of carried that with me with this idea of like, this has to be a success. I gotta prove him right, if not myself.
Yeah. I guess I've got to where my mind was going from the very beginning was music to marketing. They both start with an M, but other than that, I can't make a connection there. Walk us through that journey. How does that happen?
So after I graduated from college, I wanted to. My goal was to work on Broadway, and I wasn't like this big Broadway guy. I didn't go to High School Musical or anything like that. Like it was just, I just like Broadway was a very prestigious gig. I lived outside New Jersey. It was revered as something. It was a steady gig. It was a full-time job. Like, it paid really well. Had all the things that checked off my list. And so I just kind of figured you just rang somebody's doorbell and they gave you the gig, and then, or maybe you auditioned or something, and it was easy peasy, and it wasn't. And so I learned that very quickly, that it wasn't a matter of, being good enough to get that gig. It was a matter of being loud enough about getting in front of people. I started collecting playbills. I started sending people, tapes. I started going to the shows, and just, like, meeting people as they were walking out of the theater, just so I can, like, I'd offer to buy them a drink or take them out to dinner. I was calling people every single day, like, getting just having people hanging up on me every day, being told no every single day. And it was more of an exercise in marketing. And when nobody would pick up my call anymore, I had an opportunity to write an article about, bass players on Broadway for prestigious bass player magazine. And then I called everybody back and I was like, how about I interview you instead? If you won't give me a shot, let me at least interview you. And then everybody wanted to be my friend. So along the way, I accidentally stepped into this marketing thing where I was just like, I wonder if I could do this for other people. Because it really was an out of the box way of getting, the gig. That was purely marketing. It had nothing to do with talent. I was not the best in New York at the time. I had no experience. I graduated from college, months earlier. It just was a matter of just, getting in front of the right people, and having a really good message for them.
I guess, then as you told that story, I was listening for where there might be common ground there with music and marketing, and this is where my mind drifted. So I'm looking for some guidance on it. If I'm thinking
Sure.
the right way, music and anything to do with acting is very technical, and there's chords, right, to resonate with people. And so the resonation with music and resonating with using marketing to resonate with a target audience. Am I tracking well on that?
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's less about the technical thing, and it's more about using this tool, whether it's music or whether it's marketing, whether it's acting, to change how somebody feels. To play something, to do something, to say something, to design something that changes the way somebody looks at something, or changes the way somebody feels about something, or gets them to stop in their tracks and actually pay attention. So I think that, like, that's probably where some of that overlap lives.
Okay. All right. Walk us through the day in the life of the work that you do. What's an ideal client for you look like?
So we're not a traditional marketing agency. And in fact, I hesitate to even call us an agency because most people hate marketing agencies. We're a fractional CMO, and so what that means, just like Nike has a CMO in their company that kind of oversees and manages all the marketing. That's not an affordable option for most smaller businesses, because a really good CMO is going to cost you $300,000 or $400,000 a year at minimum, at that level. And so what we do is we kind of come in and, almost like on a part-time basis, even though we're available, like, for our clients all the time. And we come in and we manage all their marketing. So, if, let's say they have, because what traditionally happens is you have somebody who's spending, let's say, $50,000 a month on marketing. They're using, Google ads, they're using social media, SEO, and any number of different marketing sources. And what they normally do is they hire a bunch of vendors. So they hire an SEO vendor, and they hire a pay-per-click vendor, and they hire a social media vendor, or person, and then everybody kind of works in their silos and does their thing, and they're not managed by anybody, and everybody just kind of has their fingers crossed, hoping that something kind of works. And more often than not, it works well enough to keep you in business, but not necessarily well enough to where you're getting the most, bang for your buck, so to speak. And so what we do is we kind of come in and we enter into the equation on the leadership level. So we're not another agency that you're paying. We're not going to do your SEO. We're not going to do your pay per click. We're not a vendor. We come in at on the C-suite level as your CMO. Your goals are our goals. We're at the leadership team meetings. We are. We're discussing high level, stuff with you and the company. We're connected with with all the other executives and as well as the department heads. Like we're talking to the sales department head about leads and everything else. And then our job is to then communicate that to all of our vendors, to everybody who's working with us, make sure that everybody's doing what we need them to do, getting the results we need them to get, and that the budget is being spent wisely, the leads are good, and the business is growing. So we kind of lead that that ever important department for marketing.
The work that I do, I work more closely with fractional CFOs,
Mm.
and the pain. I'll describe the pain that I see of why that exists in the businesses I deal with, and see if we can parallel that to what you just described. In that space, a lot of times, especially small to medium sized businesses, they start their business out, or maybe it's a business they bought, and there's no accounting responsibilities. That maybe they've got ADP or Paychecks or somebody doing their payroll, and then maybe somebody in-house does it. They've got QuickBooks, their chart of accounts looks, messy, and then they come to somebody like me and say, "Hey, we want to grow, we want to expand, or I want to get my business ready to sell," right? And everything that I would do is based on benchmarks. Where are they financially, and how do we guide this, to see the results? Are we making an impact on the business? That sounds very different than what you're describing. It's the fractional CFO is part-time, maybe where they meet once a week, once a month, whatever that cadence is, but they are a little bit different accountability. You're more at not that the fractional CFO isn't C-level type stuff, but the CMO does definitely sound like it's that C-level. I mean, that's what you just described.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're definitely at that leadership side because we do some execution, but very little. Mostly, it's all strategy. We're setting the strategy of so we're hearing from the top, from usually from the CEO, sometimes from the COO, where the direction of the company is going. Here's what our goals are. Here's what we're shooting for this quarter, this year, whatever the time frame is this month. And our job is to go, okay, cool, we got it. Let's go figure out how we're going to make that happen. And so sometimes that means bringing in a new marketing source. Sometimes it means getting rid of a vendor and replacing them with somebody else. Sometimes it means killing off a marketing source. Sometimes it means changing or reallocating the spend. So depending on where the results are, we make those adjustments, and in order to hit the goals that the CEO and the COO have set for us.
All right, I'm going to dip my toe. This is the TrustBuilt Podcast, so we're going to dip our toe into the trust part of this.
Sure.
The classic arm wrestling that I have seen is there's this arm wrestling match between sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's explore that. I'm not going to ask you to name names, but when you're dealing with an organization and you understand that there may be some areas that there's opportunity for you as a marketing group to come in and help, but the constraint lies over in sales. How do you handle that type of situation when it seems to be more of a sales than marketing issue?
And we've come across that a lot. I mean, as you can imagine, and the same is true for marketing. It's not always sales' fault. Sometimes it's marketing's fault, and sometimes we're driving a bunch of leads, and the quality isn't there, or or something's off. We need to adjust. So it's really important not to walk into that conversation with, "We've sent you 1,000 leads. How come you're not closing them?" Because they're not necessarily 1,000 good leads. So we want to understand, what exactly is the experience over here? and really kind of listen and understand what's happening on the sales side. Oftentimes it's just a matter of a couple of tweaks here and there, or a better partnership between the two departments. Oftentimes it's a matter of ways that we can kind of help by setting them up, differently or better, or giving them tools. Like, so if this is like, we work with a lot of real estate investors, and so one of the things that we've developed for clients is like a leave behind, package. So when they go to visit a client, like, we have this big marketing piece that they can leave behind. That's the marketing team helping the sales team, better set themselves up. Same thing with, like, all the automated scripts and stuff like that that happen between the lead and the sales. Um, and yeah, and then every now and then, sales is blowing it, and it happens. The important thing is that if that's the case, or whatever really the case is that you're not basing it on emotion or being defensive, or trying to look good or make them look bad or whatever it is, but you're just basing it on data. So what we'll do is, I mean, we keep track of everything that's happening from between marketing and sales, and then sometimes it's just a matter of, like, if we're not closing on sales calls, let's take some of those sales calls, let's dump them into AI, and have them evaluated, and see if there's anything in there that they're not saying or they are saying. Like, you got to walk into it with some level of proof. Hey, we listened to some calls. Here's some of the things that we found. Here's what the data is telling us. And so you have a better, you have better ground to stand on, because like the weird thing that we often experience is, we're an outsider, but we're not an outsider. We're positioned as somebody inside the company, but we're still like a company that an unrelated company. And so the initial reaction is for people to get defensive when we're around.
Mm.
And so if we're pushing people back or pointing fingers or whatever, that just makes that worse. It's really important for us to come in as a partnership, and smooth those lines out between the two.
Yeah, uh, I'm paralleling again, but in the world that I do in exit planning, like preparing a business get to for the owner's going to exit, whether they're selling it or transitioning to family or whatever. One of the things in mid-size or larger businesses is quality of earnings, right? Are the profits actual? Are they
Mhm.
really true on what their earnings are? And they call it Q of E, or quality of earnings. That's kind of what you just talked through. Is where's the quality? How do we evaluate the quality of the marketing that's been done, and in what way? The quality of sales, converting those leads into, the cost of acquisition, right? So there's different things to unpack there, and that's what I'm hearing in your journey as far as the work that you do. I'm hearing things that cause me to parallel. Active listening, I guess, is the word for it. That, that's kind of the journey you're taking me down here. Am I following you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's very safe to say. I mean, because like, if we come in and all we're worried about is what we do, and we're you know ignoring or stepping all over what everybody else is doing, like, then that's what we typically see with, like, agencies. So for example, like, the SEO company isn't really concerned with what the social media company or what the PPC company is doing. They're just worried about, got these keywords ranked, traffic increased, got a bunch more leads, and even that third one is usually, is not always even considered. It's just a matter of, like, hey, our job is just to increase traffic. And so that can't be our job. Like, our job has to be concerned with everybody and everything that's going on, because again, we're not proving anything for ourselves or doing for ourselves. We are a member of the company, and so if the company doesn't hit these goals, we failed. And we can't point towards, yeah, but we increased the ranking of these keywords, or we reduced the cost per lead by $8. Like, none of that matters. Nobody cares. Our job was to do this. The revenue's not there. What happened? And if it's sales fault, it doesn't matter. Like, we got to figure it out.
Yeah, the story that along those lines, the story I usually share with business owners is it's like saying, "Hey, can you? I need a ride. Can you give me a ride?" And they're, sure, I have transportation for you, right? Transportation. Well, what is it? Is it a bicycle, a motorcycle, a truck, car? And you need to unpack that. You need to be a little bit more clear as to
Uh,
exactly what are we talking about here, and how are we going to get there, and is it the safest way to get there, and the most effective? And that's the journey that I feel like that we're going down here, and I think that's fantastic because marketing is not just it's an umbrella, but it's not. When people say I need better marketing, there's a lot to unpack there. And that's what I'm hearing. There is a lot to unpack and wrangle in order to get the results, which is what we're all about, is we're trying to get certain results, whatever they are.
right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's it's not. I mean, having something as vague as like I just need better marketing, or I need more marketing, or I need to spend more, or whatever. It's very rare that it's like, oh, I just needed to twist this one, screw a half a turn, and now everything is fine and working great. There's all these different levers to push, and there's all these different personalities we have to deal with. We're usually dealing with anywhere between 3 and 8 different marketing agencies that all have to kind of come together. And currently, before we walk in the door, everybody's working in silos and nobody's talking to each other. And our job is to bring all that together and have one basic form of communication, and one message. If you like, in most companies, if you do a Google search and you see an ad, and then you click on that ad and go to the website, and then you see a billboard, and then you, see a TV commercial, and then you get a direct mail piece in the mail, and then you see a social media post. It sounds like you're talking to 8 different people because they have a different vendor for each of these different marketing sources.
Mm.
And so part of our job is to like, hey, how do we bring together this thing into one unified voice and make sure we're all telling the same story and speaking in the same tone and saying the same thing? Because that's how you lose a lot of trust, is by, if every time I talk to you, it sounds like I'm talking to somebody different. And like, it's clear that you guys aren't communicating amongst yourselves, like something feels fishy, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not interested.
Let's talk metrics for a minute.
Sure.
In the world that you live in, there's always going to be the metrics, right? What are the big ones that when your company is hired on to come in, what is or what are the metrics that you're measured by? Where do they hold you accountable?
Sure. So we don't work with e-commerce companies. We just work with like B2C type of professional service based businesses. So like think your average attorney or doctor or real estate investment firm or financial advisor, stuff like that. And in all of those cases, the one thing that they all have in common is that, aside from spending a fortune on marketing and lighting most of that on fire, they're basically chasing leads. Like that's what they want. They want new customers, and so it all starts with a lead. So that's the first thing that we're looking at. We're looking at what are the gross leads. That means that everybody that raised their hand, picked up the phone, filled out a form, whether they're qualified or not, this is the first bucket where everything goes into. So we look at that, but we're not like none of that matters because it doesn't necessarily mean anything. They could be all unqualified. And so that brings us to our second bucket, which is qualified leads. And so the way that we look at things is qualified is our first gauge of success. Like, are we hitting our numbers in terms of qualified leads? And one of the gauges that we also look at is what is the percentage of qualified leads, from gross leads. So like we got 100 gross leads, and we got 50 of those were actually qualified, meaning that they're ready to do business with us. Our percentage is 50%, which is good. If that number was 25 and it's 25%, not so good. That means that we're driving a ton of garbage content or garbage traffic to the site, or reaching out to the wrong people, all that stuff. So we got gross leads and then qualified leads, and then In a lot of cases, the first step or the first next step is to book an appointment. Because like if you're if you're an attorney, you want to sit down with somebody and see if they're a good fit for you and if they're the right attorney for you. So that's really kind of the sales call is that appointment. So we look at appointments. What's the percentage of qualified leads that became an appointment? The next stage, this speaks to quality, is appointments attended. How many of those appointments actually showed up? Because I could book 100 appointments, but if one person shows up, like, we don't get to celebrate that. So what's the percentage of people that showed up for that appointment? And then how many people actually signed up or signed a contract or decided to do business with us? And then, of course, what's the revenue? Now, the revenue often is where it gets out of our hand because, I don't have any say over, what the sales team does, with that contract, what the revenue is. But we track it just because it's important for us to know that if we spend $1,000 on SEO, PPC, whatever it is, how much did we get in return? Did we make, $3,000? So we have a 3 times return. Did we make $500? So we have a 0.5 and we actually lost money. Do we have $10,000 and we have a 10x return? So that's also an important number because that helps us gauge where we're going to spend our money.
Do you have, so the businesses that you were talking about there, where my mind drifted was lifetime value.
Mhm.
Is that a metric that you, depending on the industry, is that something that you help measure?
Yeah. So again, it definitely depends on the industry. So if you are a personal injury attorney, not really, because we don't want to get in too many car accidents. Like like it's not like we're getting in a car accident every couple of months, or hopefully not, God forbid. So for that, it's more in terms of, and those are very long cases and everything else. So it's more in terms of like the leads. Do they make the appointments? Did they sign the agreement? But a doctor's office or dentist office, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like if you spend $100 for a lead to do teeth cleaning for somebody who is, who just paid $75 for a teeth cleaning, it sounds like it's a loss, except when you look out over the next 5 years and they had a root canal and they had, Invisalign and they had, caps put on, and all of a sudden that $75 lead or $100 lead, at which you lost money on in that first appointment, turns into $10,000 of new business over the next 5 years. So in that case, that's where it becomes very helpful, because otherwise you might look at like, hey, every time we do PPC, we spend $100 for a lead, we only make $75. This is a big loss for us. We shouldn't do it anymore. But then if if you only looked out for the next year or two, you would realize that no, like, we're killing it on this. Like, we're going to lose money on the first one, but they will come back if we do a good job.
Yeah. I think in the grocery business they call those lost leaders, right?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
In the store so that they fill their cart with everything else, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about retaining clients, because in there, there's what it takes to get a client, and then there's what it takes to keep the client. And in the world that I live in, it is typically evolving around trust, or the loss of trust. Walk us through a cycle, not necessarily asking you to name names, but walk through a cycle where you see you kind of going from ditch to ditch to try to keep it out of the ditch. How do we maintain trust? You know what I'm saying? I want.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I promise
No,
you.
you're not. It's just it's fun. Like, yeah, I totally get it.
But I know with my clients, a lot of times that a little bit of lack of clarity in there, and not intentional, that all of a sudden that I'm like, how did we get there, and why are they looking at doing something different than what we discussed on the front end? There's some, and I'm not going to call it miscommunication, but more of a lack of clarity. When the rules change and you're like, wait a minute, who moved my cheese? Let's go with the LoudMouse, right? Who moved my cheese? How did that, talk me through that, what that looks like in the marketing world.
Sure. So I think it starts well before that they're a client. And this kind of, and I've learned this the hard way, that it lands on you as the business owner, and making sure that you're choosing the right clients. I've had plenty of clients where, it's kinda like that, bad, boyfriend or girlfriend thing where it's like, I could change them. Like, you've been in a meeting with a client, you're like, "Oh, this is not somebody that I wanna do business with, but I bet they'll be different for me, or I bet they'll treat me differently, or I bet they'll," I could probably turn it around, and you think you can fix somebody, and so you take on a bad client, and sure enough, they're a bad client, and it never ends well. So we've really, we've learned this the hard way over the years, we try to do our best to really spend some time with clients up front to better understand what their needs are, how they work with their team, how they treat their team is likely how they're going to end up treating us. So if they treat their team abusively, they're going to probably abuse us at some point. And so it all starts there. Like that is the first step of churn and losing clients and turnover and all that. Then I think the next step is being clear about expectations. And in marketing, one of the most dangerous areas is like this what we call like undeclared expectation, where it's we didn't say anything and the client didn't say anything, but the client has an expectation that something's going to happen. They didn't verbalize it to us. We didn't say it's not going to happen, and so it's just this undeclared thing that they're thinking that they're going to get or that's going to happen, and then when it doesn't happen, they get to be mad about it. And so being clear on those expectations of like, hey, here's how this is going to work. Here's what's going to happen. Here's where the boundaries are. Here's and really kind of stating that in a way where everybody's clear, whether it's in writing or during conversations, or every time you get like a little bit of a hint of it coming up, and you go, "Whoop, whoop, whoop, whoop," hold on a second, let's nip this right now before it grows into a monster. And just being able to manage those expectations. And then once you get beyond that, you're in pretty good footing. But and it really kind of comes down to results. I mean, at the end of the day, if we're not carrying our weight, and if we're not, making getting good enough results to warrant the investment in us, like it's not enough for us to be busy. We actually have to get results. I mean, then it's a hard argument to keep us on the team. And I mean, if we only spent 1 hour a month with you, but we increased your revenue by 40% because we're on your team, like you wouldn't be like, you're not spending enough time. You're like, we're gonna fire you because you're not hanging out with us enough. Like you'd
Yeah.
be like, I don't care whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. And so really in that respect, it's more about the results. Like once you can get past those first two.
Yeah, yeah. The expectations part. I think the book Dare to Lead. Brene Brown has a book
Hmm.
called Dare to Lead, and
Yeah.
there's early on in the book, somewhere in there, she talks about the expectations that you just shared and how impactful that can be
Yeah.
negatively, right? But yeah. Well, yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to wrap it up with a couple of questions. Since I brought up a book, right?
Sure.
Dare to Lead is the one that I just referenced. But if I'm a business owner that's watching this episode and I'm like, I think I need some marketing, is there resources out there that would, instead of them coming straight to you, I'm not saying don't come to you, but if they're like, they need to know something, I need them to be a little bit educated so that I don't have to educate them. I need them to understand a little bit more about the concept of marketing. Is there any free resources out there that you would suggest they might lean into?
I mean, there are tons of books. The challenge with marketing is that the day after the book comes out, it's usually starts getting outdated. It's like one of those things you'd never buy a book called, what stocks to pick, because by the time the book is printed, like, all the stocks could be devastated at that point. So it's really hard to pick certain resources like and especially like with ChatGPT, at our fingertips, that's probably the best free resource that you'll find. And, but like the way I would use it is I would train it in some of the best marketing minds that you can think of. So, like if you're writing an email sequence, ask ChatGPT who are the top 10 email copywriters in the world. And it's going to give you a bunch, list of a bunch of people. And then you say, okay, great. I want you to, help me with this email or answer these questions from this perspective, as these people. And then ask it questions and have a conversation with it. Like, out of the box content from ChatGPT is not great. It loses some of that human element. And so it's good to get you 60, 70, 80% of the way there, but it definitely needs that, that human touch. But like, not enough people are using it as like their new best friend, where they're like actually having conversations with ChatGPT and saying like, hey, I want to build a website, but I'm not really sure what the navigation should be. Here's what they want to accomplish. What do you think it should be? And then have it come back and say, well, what about this? And you're like, I don't like that. What about, and actually have a conversation with it and ask it whatever questions that you have. That's probably the best free resource because it's all the resources that are out there all rolled into one.
Mm. Well, I will say this to summarize this whole discussion that we've had is one of the key pillars of building trust is competency. And you have shown competency in marketing. So my hat's off to you. Great job.
I appreciate that.
So people, if they're listening and they're leaning into this and like, man, this guy, this is hitting with me, how do they find you?
So, you could visit our website at loudmouse.com, loudmouse.com. And you could just reach out to me from there. I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime. I love talking marketing. I love talking with business owners. So, if you want to talk to me about marketing and you're a business owner, we've just become new best friends.
Well, I do appreciate you being on this episode. This has been fantastic.
Sure. Thanks. No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.